Woohoo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Wow. Kimberly Harris, formerly Kimberly Cummings, claims on social media, city council member, town council member, normal town council member. She's claiming on social media while she was out, she knocked on a door and either a person or persons were inside. And they allegedly were so enraged to see a black woman on their doorstep that they threw things at her. This is what she claims in a social media post. And I'm going to get to this because I don't think it's really a tactful. I don't think it helps her at all on the campaign. It doesn't seem like she's doing very well on the campaign. It's Kathleen Lorenz, Chris Coos, and Kimberly Harris, who are running for Normaltown mayor. I don't think that this helps her in any kind of way. I think it actually, fans the flames here of division, and it makes Normal look like a place where you don't want to live. Now, if this happened, and I'm not doubting it happened, perhaps it did happen, she should file a police report. That's what I recommend. Kimberly Harris, she could go and file this police report if people were throwing things at her for assault. And that's not right. But I also think that, taking to social media, not dealing with this like an adult, taking to social media and getting upset about this and saying that, we're at a point in this town or even in our local communities where people are racist. Essentially, that's, the sentiment of her video. We're going to watch it. She says that, everybody pretty much is like that. There is this, it's more than one person type deal. Now, I don't know how many doors she knocked on, but it sounds like, this is the only person who, threw things at her allegedly. She should go file a police report if this happened and deal with this like an adult. I think that this makes her campaign look really bad, makes it look like, I don't know if this was her intent, but it makes it look like she is ripping on the town of Normal and saying that this is not a place that is safe for minorities. And if that's the case, then she's to blame. She's a current council member. Okay, so if this place is not safe for minorities, that's the fault of all of your Democrat politicians who have been Mayor Chris Coos. I don't know how long he's been mayor, probably longer than I've been alive. So that's Chris's fault. That's the Democrat majority on Bloomington, Normal town council. That's their fault. If this is not a safe place for minorities, that's their fault. And if you're serious about making this a safe place for minorities, then deal with this like an adult and file a police report. I'm going to get to that, but I also want to get to Sharon Chung. She's a state representative in the 91st. Oh boy, captured on public radio, taxpayer-funded public radio. She did an interview about the Madigan corruption. And she essentially says that Illinois corruption is over, that the system works. I think it's hilarious. Democrats, when it pleases them or furthers their agenda or their narrative, they'll say that the system works. For example, Donald Trump, being a convicted felon, right, of 30 plus felonies or whatever it is, they'll say that the system works. For the Jan 6ers who were, in my opinion, wrongfully in prison for 4+ years for things like misdemeanors, they'll say, oh, well, the system works. In the case of the Trump supporters, but, they've been crying and screaming at the sky for years, decades now, that the system is broken and that it wrongfully imprisons Black men specifically. And people plead guilty to crimes that they're not actually guilty of. And that the system is corrupt, but they'll say that the system works when it furthers their narrative, when it furthers their agenda. So she says the system works, and it's proof, the Madigan, which it actually, if anything, I could argue that the system is broken. The fact that we had to wait this long for Michael Madigan, and the fact that he probably won't even see the inside of a prison cell. He's probably going to be, hanging out on a country club somewhere, which, I mean, the guy's 82 years old at this point. It's like, I'd love to see him in a prison cell. But yeah, the system is broken. It shouldn't have taken this long to jail Michael Madigan. At this point, he's 82 years old. Does it even really matter that we jail him now? Yeah, and I think the only reason why Michael Madigan got caught is because, like I've told you several times, there's this faction within the Democrat Party. Even here locally, you've got your communists and your globalists, and, Chris Welch is the young Democrats in the Illinois Democratic Party who didn't like the Michael Madigan way, the good old boy, you scratch my back, I scratch your back kind of politics. They didn't like that. They'd much rather sell out the country to the communists via, tax credits, Goshen. They've got all kinds of tax credits to come here. It's a CCP electric vehicle battery maker. That's the type of politics they're into. They like the communism. They like the socialism. And, Michael Madigan, all corrupt, all evil. It's just a different kind of evil. And I really do think that Michael Madigan was turned in by his colleagues in the Illinois House or in Springfield, the younger ones who wanted a different direction for Illinois to make us more communistic. So we're going to get to that. I don't think that the system works at all. The fact that he was able to, for years, I mean, the longest serving, I believe, politician, in the Illinois government, this is insane. He was serving as speaker for a very long time. And he, everybody knew what he was doing, and it took so much time for him to actually be convicted. I don't think the system works at all. So, and I also think Sharon Chung is probably the top 10 most corrupt Illinois politicians in the state. One of the most corrupt, and I'll get to why here in just a second. But I'm also going to get to Donald Trump burying Mitch McConnell. On Friday, we talked about Mitch McConnell. And as I said, Mitch McConnell at this point, I don't think he even knows what he's doing. He's in a very Dianne Feinstein type situation where he's getting rolled out for votes, and I don't even think he knows what he's doing. But Mitch McConnell gets buried figuratively. I don't want to say, actually buried. You might believe me, because Mitch McConnell is not doing well. But he got buried by Donald Trump because of his latest vote. He tried to shut down Tulsi Gabbard. We've had a great couple of weeks. We had Tulsi Gabbard. We have RFK Jr. confirmed. So great couple of weeks for MAGA. But of course, Mitch McConnell was the sole Democrat Freudian slip, Republican in the Senate to vote down RFK Jr. So I'm going to get to that here in just a second. Let's start with Sharon Chung, shall we? And as always, folks, I'm live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. It's freezing outside. It's cold. It's 5 degrees right now. I'm looking at my temperature gauge. So cold. And we had a little bit of snow yesterday, like just kind of blowing around, really. Nothing like that nice, flaky snow that comes down and sticks to the ground. We had some blowing snow. We had some ice over the weekend, too. It was just nasty weekend. But I hope you're driving safe into work, and we're going to get into all the news this morning, and you can be a part of it by texting 309-451-9299 or commenting on the stream, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. All right, let's get into it. The left-leaning taxpayer-funded radio station, they sat down with Democrat State Representative Sharon Chung. She represents the 91st State House District, and she says that the guilty verdict is a sign that justice has been served, the guilty verdict of Michael Madigan. And like I said, not really. Okay, he's 82 years old at this point. It's kind of like too far along. Like they waited so long to the point where like he's an elderly man. He can't even really serve out his sentence. Likely he's going to serve out his sentence in some sort of country club. There is no true justice being served here. Yes, it's great that he's convicted, but it should have happened a long, long time ago. And I think the only reason why he got convicted is because his Illinois the young Illinois Democrats didn't want to serve under his reign anymore. And they wanted, a new form of corruption. They wanted to sell out Illinois to the communists, the Chinese communists, where they sell us out for the windmills, the solar panels, the electric vehicle battery maker, Goshen, all of that. They're into that type of politics, the globalism type. Now, Michael Madigan is one of these, cigar, old school, corrupt politicians, which I'm not saying is any better. But he's like the you scratch my back, I scratch your back, very typical, like, you donate to my campaign, I'm going to write favorable legislation for you. Okay, so Sharon Chung, she says this, quote, "It shows that the system is working." What? Oh boy. I think it's hilarious. You've got Democrats out there saying that the system is working. Okay, well then the system works. You can't say the system works in this situation and then the system doesn't work in this situation. You know, the Safety Act, we've got violent criminals out there who are on the street. We've got people who are getting paid for via the tax dollars through the Peacekeeper Initiative. This is where violent ex-cons, they're given a vest. They're told to go out into the streets of Chicago, play social worker on the taxpayer dime, and then, come to find out, what was his name? Montez is his last name. He, while being a peacekeeper, while getting paid with taxpayer dollars, drug a guy out of his car and practically curb stomped him and caused his face to be reconstructed, had to get his face reconstructed. And this is a guy through the Peacekeepers Initiative that we're paying for with our tax dollars. So no, the system doesn't work in those types of cases. You'll say that criminal justice reform, like the Peacekeepers Initiative and a billion others that we're paying for, it works. The system works. The system is working. You say that, if a black man is convicted after he's beaten somebody half to death, okay, you'll say, oh, well, the system failed him. Okay, the system failed him. So which is it, Sharon Chung? Is it the system doesn't work or does work? Okay, in this case, you say that the system works. In other cases, you say that, the system's corrupt and it wrongfully convicts black men or gets them to admit guilt when they're not actually guilty. Okay, that's what Democrats do. Okay, they say that the system works in this situation, but not in when it serves their agenda and their narrative. I will say that the system is broken. It is broken, and in cases with, the Jan 6ers, you got them serving time for misdemeanors, 4 years in a very nasty prison. They're treated unfairly. I would say that the system is broken. We've got no cash bail here in the state. The system is very broken, and I don't see where it works. Might work. Like I would say 25% of the time. It might work. But yeah, I love how Democrats, if it furthers their narrative, they'll say that the system works. So Sharon Chung said she's not opposed to additional ethics reform. Yes, she is. When she says that she's not opposed to additional ethics reforms, move with your feet, lady. Okay, actually vote for ethics reforms. Republicans have introduced several ethics reforms in the past where they've, hey, let's make it to where the speaker is not the only one who gets to call bills. Let's make it to where the speaker can't call bills just randomly, because the speaker has so much power. Joe Tabor, who I spoke to from the Illinois Policy Institute, he's the director of legal research. This is via the Center Square. He says, look, we've got the House Speaker. He's got all of the power. The House Speaker is allowed to call a bill for a vote without giving lawmakers advance notice. There's thousands of bills that are introduced every year in the General Assembly, so you don't have a chance to read them all. Lawmakers should have time to read them all. They should also be able to debate them on the floor and discuss them. That doesn't happen because the Speaker gets to decide what moves when, and he gets to decide, the timing of it all. So there could be this huge omnibus bill that you don't get to read, and he calls it randomly, and you don't get to debate it on the floor. The speaker has way too much power, and that's why Michael Madigan got away with what he did for so long. He decides what bills live or die. So, Speaker Chris Welch, if he wants, he doesn't have to pass any ethics reform, which is what happens, actually. There are plenty of ethics reforms out there, bills introduced to change the way the state is run, and none of the Democrats want them, specifically Chris Welch, because he's the one who's supposed to call them. So she says she's not against ethics reforms. Okay, vote for one of the Republicans' ethics reforms bill where it says, hey, the House Speaker shouldn't be the only one who gets to decide what bills live or die. Okay, so essentially your lawmakers it really doesn't matter what they do in Springfield. I'm just going to be honest with you. I mean, they have a little power, but not really. It's all in the speaker's hands because he decides what gets passed when. Okay, and that's something we've got to change. I would say most states don't have that type of system. If she is serious about ethics reforms, why doesn't she vote for things like that to get rid of these powers that the Illinois House Speaker has? So yeah, she says we as a caucus are pretty serious about trying to put a lot of that behind us, and we're trying to, put a new page forward. Yeah, and by new page forward, they mean a different brand of corruption. Okay, so a different brand of corruption being that they're going to sell the state out to foreign adversaries, and they're going to be little communist globalists. Okay, Governor J.B. Pritzker is going to sell this state out to his commie buddies and his other billionaire friends like George Soros. Okay. So that's what they mean when they say, let's turn the page. They turn the page when they turn Michael Madigan in. Okay, the younger Democrats turned Michael Madigan in. He would have never even dealt with any of this had it not been for, a faction within the Democrat Party convicting him and getting him to be convicted. I truly believe that's what happened and how he got caught. Members of the Illinois General Assembly must take an annual ethics training program. Like that does anything. Follow stricter financial disclosure rules. Yeah, okay, whatever. But Sharon, she says stricter financial disclosure rules. Okay, your buddy Jim Rogel on the McLean County Board, he was taking money from a dark money group who has ties to the Tide Foundation, which is funded by George Soros and Governor J.B. Pritzker. Like, if you're serious about stricter financial disclosure rules, then get your buddies to follow those rules, okay? Locally, and I'm sure the Illinois Democratic Party, they took money from this same dark money group. The entire Illinois Democrat Party, I'm sure she had some of those funds funneled into her coffers as well. So they're not serious about financial disclosure rules, okay? Because they take money from dark money groups, which is quite literally groups who fly under the radar. You don't know where the money comes from. I managed to find out that, this dark money group, that Jim Rogel, and probably Sharon Chung, I'd have to look into it. They all take it. All the Democrats, Illinois Democrats, take this kind of money from the Illinois dark money group that has connections and has received grants from the Tides Foundation. And look into the Tides Foundation. It's a project of George Soros and Governor J.B. Pritzker. So, I mean, they're all about skirting financial disclosure rules. They use dark money groups. Republicans don't. I've never seen it. Where a Republican takes money from a dark money group. I've never seen that. So yeah, Sharon Chung, she goes on. She goes, a lot of us are ready to put this behind us. Yeah, of course. She goes, the reputation that Illinois has of being corrupt. We have both Democratic and Republican governors and lawmakers who have been accused and found guilty of various crimes. It's not just one party. Yeah, I would say that it's not just one party, but I will say that there is one party where corruption is more prevalent than the other. Okay, I would say Republicans are just as corrupt. Your Tony McCombies, your rhinos, right? They're pretty corrupt. They just do whatever the Democrats tell them to do. So I wouldn't say it's just one party, but there's one party where they're using dark money groups and the other party is not. I'm going to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. I am fired up about this. Hey, good morning. Go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Sharon Chung. This just bothers me so much because knowing and I'm going to get to this here in just a second, Sharon Chung is probably one of the most corrupt politicians. If she says that she's all for ethics reforms, if she's all for financial disclosure rules, and she's all about ethics, then she needs to act ethically herself. There's plenty of situations where Sharon Chung has not acted ethically. So Sharon Chung also said criticism at Welch and the connection to Madigan playbook is just politics. I don't think Welch has a connection to, the only connection being that he wanted to oust, and a lot of these younger Republicans wanted to oust the Madigan era politicians. So I think you see that at a federal level as well. You've got your, Bernie Sanders, who wants to be a fake socialist wannabe, where he's pretends to be a communist because he sees the writing on the wall that that's the way of the Democrat Party and that's the direction they're going, is this globalism, communism, selling out the country to our adversaries. Okay, that's the way, that's the direction they want to go, these younger Democrats. And it used to be, your Barack Obamas, your Hillary Clintons, where they are, you scratch my back, I scratch your back kind of deal, where they craft favorable legislation and in exchange you donate to their campaigns. Okay, so they're all about that type of corruption. Not that one corruption is better than the other. They're both bad, but Sharon Chung, she goes on, she goes, they can try and connect everybody, and I mean, I bet people have tried to connect me and Michael Madigan, but I've never met the man before. So I think, at least how I see it, is that Speaker Welch, the House, they all unanimously voted on Welch to be the Speaker. So yeah, I think that there was something that went down where these younger Democrats, ousted Michael Madigan. He probably would have never been convicted had they not turned him in, but they turned him in because it furthered their agenda, their new agenda, the Governor J.B. Pritzker type politics, where you sell out the state to our foreign adversaries. Okay, they want to go that direction. So, because that's where all the money is. It's all about the money, money, money. Now, Michael Madigan was all about power. Now, he was about the money, but he was also about power. And that's the main thing about Michael Madigan, the difference between a Michael Madigan and Governor J.B. Pritzker. Governor J.B. Pritzker is in it for the money, for sure. He's just in it for the money, and he's just this billionaire guy, and he wants more and more money because he thinks money is power. Now, Michael Madigan is really interesting because power is your connections, and your ability to make connections and not get caught. Okay, so to make these types of connections and not get caught, it's rumored that he didn't even have a cell phone, folks. Okay, Michael Madigan didn't have a cell phone, and he had this ability to connect with people and get them to do what he wanted them to do. And it was never really about the money. It was about how many people and how much you can get them to do what you want them to do. Okay, that's what Michael Madigan politics is all about, getting people to do what you want them to do. So it's about power. And Michael Madigan, I think, prioritized power more so over money. Now you have these younger Democrats who are prioritizing the money. The money is with the George Soros billionaires and the globalist billionaires, and selling out the country. Okay, and culturally shifting us into an unrecognizable country where we have these two genders, more than two genders, where this trans movement is big, where we kill our children, and Governor J.B. Pritzker is about all of that. He loves killing babies. He talks about abortions all the time. He talks about transing the kids all the time. These are money makers, and the billionaires make money off of these kinds of procedures, and it's all about making money, because Governor J.B. Pritzker has it in his head that money is power. I would disagree. I think that Madigan's way of politics is actually power. But I don't know. He lost. So these younger Democrats, I think they ousted him because they wanted a different type of corruption. So an orange felon. I call BS. It's Republicans that are corrupt. Okay, come on, President Muskrat. Oh my gosh, and the orange felon. I think it's so funny. Like I said, Democrats, they'll call him a felon. But God forbid, like they'll always say like, oh, the system's so broken, and the black man, pleads guilty to crimes he's not actually guilty of. And in fact, we actually changed the wording here in the state from convicted criminal to justice impacted individual. Okay, with some legislation. It was a part of a program where you can't refer to the convicts as convicts anymore, or felons as felons anymore. You got to change it to justice impact individual. I think it's so funny. the system was weaponized against Donald Trump, number one. Number two, Elon Musk, unlike other billionaires like Governor J.B. Pritzker, who makes his billions by selling out the state, okay, to our foreign adversaries, Elon Musk, what he's done over the years is he's created and innovated things that people want, and then he sells those things. Okay, there's a much bigger difference between obtaining money that way, much like Donald Trump did. Hotels, private sector. He had a product people wanted, people bought it, and that's how he got rich. Okay, there's a difference between corrupt money and money you obtain ethically. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. Yes, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. It's a daily show. Before we took the break, I was telling you about NPR, our local radio station, left-leaning, taxpayer-funded, $32 million a year, by the way, goes to NPR, your tax money. $32 million goes to government propaganda, because that's what it is. I mean, if they're not going to bite the hand that feeds them, why would they speak negatively about your government officials? If your government officials are the ones who vote to give them the money that they need to operate, yeah, they won't speak out negatively against their politicians, and be adversarial with the government, be watchdogs of the government. They have no real reason to be, because that's the hand that feeds them. Anyway, so Sharon Chung, she says, the system works. This is proof that it works. The Michael Madigan conviction, actually, I'd probably argue that this is proof that the system doesn't work. He probably would have never been convicted had the younger Democrats, the globalist communists who wanted to rule the state of Illinois, not turned him in. I truly do believe that there's a faction within the Democrat Party statewide, but also federally, where they want to oust these good old boys. That's who I call them, cigar smoking. And Michael Madigan and Governor J.B. Pritzker, they have fundamentally different views of power. Michael Madigan believed that power was how many people could you get to do what you wanted them to do. Okay, he was all about people. And it's rumored that he never even really had a cell phone. Okay, so he was a master at creating relationships and getting them to do what he wanted to do without even really communicating with them all of the time. He was a master at power. Now, Governor J.B. Pritzker, he's all in it for the money. He believes money is power. So they come at this very differently, corruption in a very different lens. Governor J.B. Pritzker, he's about the transing movement. He's about transing kids, the abortion thing. And this is all a money-making operation. And he wants to sell out our values, us as a state. He wants to get you to kill babies. He wants you to get you to trans the kids, because it's all a money-making endeavor for this guy. He believes money is power. And there's a subsection of the Democrat Party where they believe money is power, and they will do anything to get that money, if that means selling out your farms, the CO2 pipelines, the windmills, the solar panels. That's what this is all about in the state of Illinois, and they wanted to go that direction. Globalism, communism, selling to Goshen, the CCP company, the electric vehicle battery maker, selling out our land to our foreign adversary, selling out our culture, and killing babies, all of that. So that way, the people at the tippity top who operate those systems, the trans system, the healthcare system, all of it, those people get rich at the tippity top because they've convinced you to kill the babies. They've convinced you to trans the kids. That's what this subsection of the Democrat Party is all about. Yeah, I mean, Michael Madigan, the system doesn't work because it's been years, and we all knew what Michael Madigan was doing. It was the scratch your back, I scratch my back kind of, or you scratch my back, I scratch your back kind of politics, where, hey, donate to my campaign, do what I want you to do, and I'll do what you need me to do, and we'll both, reach a higher level of power through our relationship together, okay? So that was Michael Madigan, and it's been years and years. This should have happened decades ago, Michael Madigan being convicted. But the system is broken, unlike what Sharon Chung says. And she says, we need to move past this. We need to move past this and turn a new page. Yeah, whatever, Sharon. But Sharon is, that's what bothers me. She says she has no issues passing ethical or ethics reforms. Yes, she does. Because if she was serious about ethics reform, she would actually pass the damn things, okay? She'd actually pass the legislation that takes away power from the House Speaker. She won't do it. Why? Because she's a Democrat and she loves the corruption. She loves the fact that Chris Welch gets to run the entire state of Illinois. That's essentially what this is. In the state of Illinois, the House Speaker has way too much power and can call the bills whenever, gives none of the representatives times to read the bill or debate the bill on the floor, which is not the way it should be working. Democracy doesn't work that way, right? But she's not serious, because if she was serious, she'd do it. Okay, number one. Number two, Sharon Chung is probably one of the most unethical politicians I've ever seen. Okay, at least top 10 in the state of Illinois. Now, I bring this up. This happened a couple of years ago. I remember asking State Senator Dave Kaler at Arlen Community College. He serves as the senator in the same district that Sharon Chung serves. I remember asking him about Sharon's bill. Sharon drafted a bill. It's HB 3337. This is the bill where she created this bill out of Normalites trying to run for supervisor, clerk, and assessor and collector. Okay, you guys remember this story. This is what Dave Kaler said back then in 2023. He goes, I think Sharon's bill just clarifies there's going to be some people who agree with it and some people who don't. This just clarifies the situation that's been going on. And the governor did wind up signing this, by the way. So the bill was created because Normal broke the law. Okay. The town of Normal broke the law, in my opinion. There's just no way, like, not officially in the court of law, but the statute. So here's where it all came from. You had Normalites gathering petition signatures because they wanted to split the at-large government, which is what you can do. You can gather petitions, at-large town council, into a ward system, much like Bloomington. Okay. But back then, Judge Scott Courting, he ruled that the town of Normal seemed to be an incorporated town, and it would exempt them from having to abide by those petitions that were gathered to change it into a ward system. So they're an incorporated town. Okay. So that's how this kind of all started. And Sharon Chung changed the state law to make parts of the state law originally applied to every incorporated town in Illinois, and making that law apply to only Cicero, Illinois. Okay, so there in the law, the statute that talks about incorporated towns, it says that towns over 25,000 people, so that's Normal, have to elect officers, certain officers. Now, these officers, supervisor, collector, assessor, they were appointed. Okay, so operating illegally, you have to, have those positions be elected in an incorporated town of over 25,000 people, which Normal was, or at least we thought. Judge Mark Fellheimer ruled in favor of Normal when people were trying to argue that these positions should be elected. They gathered petitions to get on the ballot for these elected offices, but Judge Mark Fellheimer shot those people down and didn't let them stay on the ballot because he argued that Normal, whatever, home rule or something like that. But end of the day, there was a statute that said, hey, Normal, you as an incorporated town have to have these elected offices. People tried to get on the ballot as those elected officers, and then they were shot down. And guess what Sharon Chung did? She went and she changed the law, and she, removed Normal from this clause, this statute, saying that Normal doesn't have to abide by this. 25,000 people have to have certain elected offices. So you see what happened here. Break a law, change a law. Okay, that's the most corrupt thing a politician could do. Clearly, these individuals, they wanted to get on the ballot. It's all about democracy. The the representative Sharon Chung, she talks about democracy all the time. Democrats talk about democracy, but when it comes down to it, they're against it. Okay, these people wanted to get on the ballot. Why? Because we're an incorporated town, and via statute, state statute, it laid it out that these offices, supervisor, clerk, assessor, and collector, they all had to be elected. Okay, that's what it dictated in statute, and they went to court. They tried to get on the ballot. The judge shot them down. But guess what Sharon Chung did? She made sure that nobody would ever file petitions to try to run for these elected offices ever again. She changed the law to where Normal doesn't have to abide by that state statute anymore. So yeah, that is the most corrupt thing I've ever seen a politician do. Here's Mark Turritilli at the time. This is what he said. The reason why the bill is just for Normal is because Normal was not in compliance with the law, which was said back by the judge in fall of 2022 case regarding the districting. Okay, Judge Scott Cording. He even said, quote, if it's a town, it sure looks like Normal is not complying with some of the statute. If it's an incorporated town, he agreed that Normal is an incorporated town, but they weren't abiding by state statute that defines what an incorporated town is supposed to do. This amendment says the changes made to this subsection is in this amendatory act or declarative of existing law and shall apply retroactively. In other words, they're trying to say, okay, we're just clarifying what already existed. But why does it need to be applied retroactively? Okay, this is taking language from the bill, retroactively. You can't change what was in the past if you're already in compliance. Okay, so they're trying to change, hey, retroactively. So, this whole case where people were trying to get on the ballot for these offices, these elected offices, this bill applies to even those people. It even applies back then if we, had these appointed and they were supposed to be elected offices. It applies even back then. So they broke the law and they changed the law to get in compliance. And then they, stretched it back. They said retroactively, even though we broke the law in the past, we can't be sued for that kind of thing because this bill applies retroactively. I mean, the most corrupt thing I've ever seen a politician do. Sharon Chung did it. They broke the law, the town of Normal, breaking the law by having these 3 appointed offices when they should have been elected. And then they changed it in order to get into compliance. Okay, most corrupt thing I've ever seen. So when she talks about ethical Illinois and she's all for ethic reform, she's not. Why? Because her actions speak louder than her words. I'm back next. Okay, so I know that was very, very local, but this just goes to show you the hypocrisy of these individuals when they're like, oh, I'm all for ethics. I'm all for ethics. Are you really, though? Because you did a very unethical thing here, Sharon, because number one, why in the hell would you be against people petitioning to try to change their at-large government in the first place? That's more representation. It's a ward system. And, the judge said, well, I think they're an incorporated town, so they don't have to abide by the districting. Okay. All right. Well, what does being an incorporated town entail? Well, that entails having these 3 elected offices. And they didn't have these 3 elected offices. They had appointed these people in these positions, and they were out of compliance with that state statute. Now, Judge Mark Fellheimer, he said that they, via home rule, can deny people being on the ballot for these 3 elected offices. He made an argument about home rule and them being able to do that, whatever. I think that's a dumb decision by the judge, Mark Fellheimer. But at the end of the day, the statute said what the statute said. Okay, and the town of Normal was out of compliance with that statute if they had defined themselves as an incorporated town. And what Sharon Chung did, she changed that statute in order for them to get into compliance and to retroactively, so in their past crimes, okay, because really that's a crime against democracy, if you ask me, they appointed positions that were supposed to be elected positions. Which is so anti-democracy, okay? You're appointing positions that are actually supposed to be elected positions. That means you're all about the bureaucracy, and that's what Democrats are really all about. They're all about the bureaucracy and not having representation, not having people on the ballot. They would rather have just one person on the ballot, a dictator, a communist dictator, right? And even then, they probably don't even really want the communist dictator on the ballot, okay? Kamala Harris, she received no votes, okay, in the primary, and they still put her in there, okay? So they're all about dictatorship and having one person on the ballot, even not even going through a primary. They're all about that, and it's all anti-democratic. It's so interesting that their party name is Democrat. They're the most undemocratic party I've ever. I mean, this is insane what they do on a day-to-day basis, and this isn't just just in Normal. Okay, this is going on in several communities where you've got people petitioning to try to get on the ballot. You've got people petitioning their government to, split it up into a ward system where they feel like they have more representation, more districts. And where their representation is closer to their community. Because the reason why people wanted to split it into districts in the first place is because there's, representation at large. There's people who live like near Uptown Normal, but there's, other places in Normal, like North Normal, there's, South Normal, whatever. But everybody seems to live, in the uppity part of Normal, and they feel like they're not being properly represented because everybody on the council is serving, their constituents where they live. Okay, and if you don't live, in the district that you serve, then you have nothing tying you to serving the people of North Normal. If you live in South Normal, okay, you have no interest in preserving North Normal or doing right by North Normal. If you live, you're going to want to change things if you live in those communities. So that's why that's so important, is the districting. But they were shut down and they were told that Normal can't be a districted area because of it having the incorporated town status. Well, guess what? Via our state laws, and they're crafted years ago, probably to protect democracy. It was recently changed by Sharon Chung, but it was crafted to protect. They said, hey, incorporated towns, no, you might not have the ability to district, but you need to also have these offices be elected offices, okay, preserving democracy. The law was there for a reason, okay, and Democrat Sharon Chung, the representative, changed the law because she's anti-democracy, okay, she's anti-people being on the ballot and being elected, and that's called communism dictatorship, okay. So yeah, when she says that she's all about an ethical Illinois and is all for ethics reforms, actions speak louder than words. Pass it, okay? Get a bill together, pass it, remove the powers from the House Speaker, because the House Speaker has way too much power as it is. There's several things that they could do as far as ethics reforms. The Reform for Illinois, Lisa Kaplan, she says the Legislative Inspector General's office does not have authority to issue subpoenas or publish summary reports without the approval of lawmakers who make up the Legislative Ethics Commission. So there should be a separate body who looks at that kind of stuff, because right now you kind of have the fox watching the hen house, with the legislators expected to oversee their fellow legislators, their friends, their colleagues. And these are people that they'll need favors from in the future. It's just structurally, the incentives are not there, particularly for robust insight or oversight. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. I'm fired up. Yes, Sharon Chung, end of the day, probably one of the most, I would say, top 10 most corrupt politicians in the state house in Springfield. I mean, what she did with this law, the HB 3337, I mean, it's very clear that Normal was in violation of this state statute, and they changed the state statute in order to get in compliance with the law. And then they, stretched it back. They used the word retroactively, so that way nobody could come after them for their prior crimes, really, for violating the law. Nobody could come after them for violating that statute and not being in compliance of that statute in years past. So this bill was very, very corrupt. So when she says that she's for a more ethical Illinois, or like that she'd be for ethics reforms, like, give me a break. Your actions speak louder than your words, lady. And it's really unfortunate that she's saying that the system is working as far as Michael Madigan's conviction. It's proof that the system works. No, the system is rigged against you, the citizen, because you tried to get petitions to get a ward system where your representation was closer to home. They shot you down. Then they were defined by a judge as an incorporated town, which means, hey, you have to have these offices be elected offices to ensure democracy. And then you were shut down when you ran for those offices by another judge and by Sharon Chung via her bill. So it's so funny that they call themselves the Democrat Party, because they couldn't be anything further from that. They're against democracy. They're against people running on the ballot. They're against people having representation close to their communities. It's kind of hilarious that they call themselves Democrats. I want to get to Kimberly Harris. She's running for Normaltown mayor on social media. She was out campaigning and she was knocking on doors, and she alleges that somebody was so enraged that they threw things at her because she was a Black woman. And I'm just simply saying, okay, Kimberly, you got to go to the police with that kind of stuff. Going to social media, it's not really the way an adult would deal with this. You got to go to police and report it, right? I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. And here is your forecast. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat, Cities 92.9. Brr, it is so cold. 3 degrees. That's right, 3 degrees. So tonight, it's just so cold. Bloomington normal. Looks like tonight there might be a chance of flurries. There might be a chance of flurries before 3 p.m. and a slight chance of snow between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. So there could be a little bit of snow today, not a ton. And then the high is going to be near 14. The wind chill values are -2, -12, between -2 and -12. This is really, really cold. So be careful out there. Tomorrow, partly sunny, a high near 11. So it's going to be pretty cold for the next couple of days. When we come back, I've got a story here about Kimberly Harris. She's running for normal mayor. She talks about how she was knocking on doors on social media, and then she knocked on this person or person's door, and she said that they were so enraged to see a Black woman. She claims that they threw things at her. My recommendation: filing a police report, right? I'll be right back with more on that, but also President Donald Trump completely figuratively buries Mitch McConnell. I gotta say figuratively because can't joke about burying Mitch McConnell because it might actually happen in a little bit. And I say that with, sympathy. This poor guy is kind of going through a Dianne Feinstein situation where we know that this 90-year-old woman, she was coached. This was really an infamous clip where she was coached by her staffers to vote yes on a vote. I don't think that Mitch McConnell is even mentally equipped to be voting against RFK Jr. or against Tulsi Gabbard. I really don't think he knows what he's doing, folks, because he's not well. And I know I'm expected to say, boo, rhino globalist, which he is. Mitch McConnell does deserve a little respect for getting those judges and the Supreme Court justices through, although that's like the bare minimum he could have done. And I don't know why the people of Kentucky keep reelecting him over and over. This guy's like an octogenarian. I don't know. Somebody's got to primary this guy because we can't have people who are coached by their staff to vote yes or no on a bill, and they have no idea what they're doing. We can't have that. So I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Welcome to the Red Kingdom. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9 The News and Talk Bloomington Normal. So grateful that you've decided to tune in to us this morning. Go ahead, smash that like button on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can subscribe always. We're going to get to Kimberly Harris on social media. Now, this is according to BLN News. They were the ones to report that she said this on social media. She was out campaigning and she was knocking on doors, and apparently there was a person or persons, it's kind of unclear, that somebody was inside this house and they were so enraged to see a Black woman on their doorstep that they threw things at her. Take a listen. This is on our social media, or Kimberly Harris for Normal. I don't think she's doing so well in the race against Kathleen Lorenz and Chris Coons. I'd imagine Chris Coons, he was, bumping elbows with Dick Durbin a couple of days ago. I'm sure Chris Coons is going to get it. I'm not too sure, but I'd like to see Kathleen Lorenz get it. Maybe. I really liked her position on. I don't know. I'm not all that excited about this race. Okay, like most races going on this year, I am excited about the normal town supervisor. I think it's important that Crystal Label is definitely running in a conflict of interest type position there. Also, Cody Hendricks is running in a very conflict of interest type position where he's going to be Bloomington mayor. And then his spouse is serving as a McLean County board member. Crystal Label serves as a McLean County board member, and she's trying to run for normal town supervisor. Conflict of interest, having higher people of government overseeing, lower government. And people serving as spouses. I mean, we've got Abby Scott. She's she's trying to run for Bloomington City Council. Her spouse is on the McLean County Board. You don't want that. You want diversity. Democrats always claim that they want diversity. I think it's so hilarious because they're not actually for it, right? Or democracy, as we talked about Sharon Chung trying to fight people on this ballot, trying to get on the ballot to run for these elected offices in this incorporated town. Normal broke a law, and then they changed the law via Sharon Chung. So one of the most corrupt politicians in the state, I would say, top 10 at least. But, Democrats will say all the time until they're blue in the face that they're for democracy and they're for diversity. But it appears here in Bloomington Normal and in McLean County that everybody and their spouses are just going to be getting these positions of power. So you've got people of the same household making these decisions. And yeah, it's kind of sad to see. I want to play this. This is Kimberly Harris on social media.
It's okay, but it really is interesting to see where we are as a human race and as a culture and as a society and even as a community. I'm sure I'm the only candidate who had to deal with what I experienced today. And it's very interesting how we change definitions of words to fit political reasons that are not true. How we are enraged at the presence, just at the presence of a person of color, to the point you're willing to throw things in their face, in a sense. And I'm okay, I'm safe, so no worries. But to just know my very presence as a Black woman standing at somebody's door enraged them. And the fact that they saw the word equity towards equitable housing immediately equated to reverse racism, and that it was a political ploy from the left side to just want equitable housing in our community. So, we're living in very interesting times. It wouldn't let me ask any questions. The one question I did get out never got answered, and was redirected back to their anger and rage from my mere presence. So Canvassing Chronicles today.
Okay, so this is Kimberly Harris. She's running for Normal Town mayor. Now, Kimberly, she doesn't address if there were racial slurs. How do you really know? It seems like this individual might have been upset about the equitable housing and that this is reverse racism. So I'm not sure if it was really because she was black or what. And I'm not, saying that it did or didn't happen. Perhaps it did happen. And if that's the case, if people are throwing things at you, you should probably file a police report. You should, for assault. If they're throwing things at you, that's assault. Okay, so I don't know. This video, I don't think it does her any favors to her campaign. Here's why. She's making Normal look like a place to avoid when it comes to minorities, or like a place where minorities should avoid, and that this is just a racist community. She says that here. She goes, it's really sad to see where we're at as far as a society, as far as a community. And I don't know if that was her intent. It makes it look like Normal is a town full of racists, and I'd be curious if she notified Not in Our Town. Not in Our Town is like a local organization that, says, hey, racism not allowed in our town, right? Bigotry not allowed in our town. And if this is not a place for minorities, who's to blame for that? Because it certainly isn't Republicans. They don't have the majority on the McLean County Board. They don't have the majority on the Normal Town Council. They don't have the majority in the Bloomington Town or Bloomington City Council. We've got Democrat mayors. Okay, Chris Coos was rubbing elbows with Dirk Durbin, for Pete's sake. So whose fault is it that this is not a safe place for minorities? It's definitely not a Republican's fault. It would be Chris Coos's fault. He's been there probably longer than I've been alive, folks, as mayor. And if this kind of stuff is happening in his town, and if it did happen, Kimberly, you got to go and you got to file a report, okay? Taking to social media and kind of making Normal look like it's a town full of racists and bigotry. That's not how you deal with this like an adult. Fanning the flames of division. This sounds like it might have been one individual. I don't know how many doors you knocked on, but it sounds like this might have been one negative reaction that you received from you knocking on doors. And we have laws in place to handle and to deal with violent behavior. And you should use those laws. And if you were serious about, making this a safe place for minorities, you would, hold those people accountable by filing a police report if they had done this to you, thrown things at you because you were black, if that's the case here. Okay. So if you are serious about changing the racial climate in Normal, if you believe there's racism, why would you not file a police report? From what I understand, she didn't talk about that in her, video at all. She just went to social media and complained about how, this community's racist. And if that's the case, then why haven't you, as a sitting council member, been able to address this in your time there? Why hasn't Normal Mayor Chris Coos been able to address, this feeling of bigotry that is, from the sounds of it, plaguing our town, which I don't believe. Sounds like it might have been a one-off situation if it had happened, where this, potentially guy had a negative reaction to her canvassing. My recommendation, if you don't want people canvassing and knocking on your door, just put up a sign: no soliciting, no door knocking. It's campaign season, or it's campaign season. So if you don't want that kind of behavior, or if you don't want to deal with those people, then just put up a sign. I've gone door to door multiple times, and if I see the sign, I don't go up to the door and knock. And if this happened, I hope that they are held accountable. Throwing things at people, that's assault. It's violent, and there's laws in place. And it sounds like you might have a case there, Kimberly. So I would go to the police if that happened. But yeah, I don't think that's going to help her campaign the way she handled this situation. It's not the adult way of handling racists, okay, and racist violent behavior. The adult way of handling is stopping it, and the way you stop it is by utilizing the law and utilizing law enforcement. I want to shift gears. Let's talk about MAGA this morning, because it's been a great week for MAGA in America. 2 back-to-back magnificent mighty MAGA men and women, Tulsi Gabbard man and woman, Tulsi Gabbard being confirmed as the National Director of Intelligence. Then you have RFK Jr. being confirmed as the HHS. Now, RFK, he was confirmed 52 to 48, party line vote, one Republican voting against Donald Trump's agenda of getting RFK Jr. confirmed, and one Republican senator being Mitch McConnell. We talked about this a little bit on Friday. Now, Mitch McConnell, I truly don't believe he knows what's going on. Mitch McConnell is an octogenarian, and my dude needs to be primaried. Okay. Now, President Donald Trump completely buried this guy, Mitch McConnell. Okay. And by buried, I mean figuratively. I have to say figuratively because if I say buried Mitch McConnell, you're probably going to be like, oh, wow, did he die? Because I don't think he's too far off. It's real sad to see him. He's not capable of voting. He's not capable of much of anything. Okay. When you watch Mitch McConnell. So the president figuratively buried him during comments at the Oval Office. Donald Trump said, look, Mitch is not equipped mentally. He's not equipped. He hasn't been for 10 years, I'd say. He let the Republican Party go to hell. If I didn't come along, the Republican Party wouldn't be in existence right now. Mitch McConnell never really had the Republican Party. Take a listen to what Trump says in the Oval here.
RFK Jr. as the next health secretary, citing conspiracy theories. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I feel sorry for Mitch. And I was one of the people that he wanted to go to the end and he wanted to stay leader. He's not equipped mentally. He wasn't equipped 10 years ago mentally, in my opinion. He'd let the Republican Party go to hell. If I didn't come along, the Republican Party wouldn't even exist right now. Mitch McConnell never really had it. He had an ability to raise money because of his position as leader, which anybody could do. You could do it even. And that's saying a lot. But the fact is that he raised money and he gave a lot of money to senators. And so he had a little loyalty based on the fact that as leader, you could raise a lot of money. Senators would call me and they say, he wants to give me 20, 25 million. Can I take it? I'd say, take the money. But he engendered a certain amount of, I don't even call it loyalty. He was able to get votes. But I was the one that got him to drop out of the leadership position. So he can't love me, but he's not voting against Bobby. He's voting against me, but that's all right. He endorsed me. Mitch, do you know that Mitch endorsed me, right? Well, you think that was easy? What?
He had polio, obviously, and
I don't know. I don't know anything about he had polio.
Are you doubting that he had polio?
I have no idea if he had polio. All I can tell you about him is that he shouldn't have been leader. He knows that. He voted against Bobby. He votes against almost everything now. He's a very bitter guy. And we have a very strong party, and he's almost not even really a very powerful member. I'd say he's lost his power, and it's affected his vote. And it's one of those things. But in the meantime, Bobby did great, got more votes than anybody thought, and I think he's going to do phenomenally in that position. And everybody else likewise did well. Not only well, they got more votes than anybody thought. Tulsi, look at how she did. She did great.
Yeah, so that's Donald Trump, and I know everybody's gonna be like, "Cat, call Mitch McConnell a rhino globalist." Boo! Yes, I know Mitch is a rhino. Okay, but he does deserve a little bit of respect. And I know this is the bare minimum. Getting judges, Supreme Court justices through. He served the people of Kentucky, and they keep reelecting him over and over and over again. And I don't know why, because this guy is not doing very well. He needs to be primaried. I don't know what the hell Kentucky is doing by reelecting him constantly, especially after, this vote against RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard. And this is the most diverse lineup we've ever seen. Like Tulsi Gabbard, I don't know what ethnicity she is. I think she's like Hawaiian or something like that. RFK Jr. is a Democrat. She's a Democrat. I think his Treasury secretary is gay. Kash Patel is like an Indian. I mean, the most diverse cabinet that you're seeing here. Okay. Now RFK Jr. Was voted against by Mitch McConnell, but I really don't think that Mitch McConnell knew what he was doing if I'm going to be honest here, because Mitch McConnell is not well, like mentally. Like he needs to be in a nursing home, likely. And I'm not saying that as a joke. I truly believe it. Okay, so this is a clip. You guys can watch it on social media, but it's Mitch McConnell, and I'll describe what happens here. He's in a chair, and this reporter keeps asking him, "Hey, how are you feeling, Leader McConnell? How are you feeling? How are you feeling?" And he doesn't answer, and he barely can get out of this wheelchair, and the staff is kind of like blocking the cameras from pointing towards Mitch McConnell because he doesn't look very well. Take a listen.
How are you feeling, Leader McConnell?
No answer. Trying to get him into the car, and he could barely stand out of this wheelchair. They're like lifting him out of this wheelchair practically.
How are you feeling, Leader McConnell?
No answer again. His staff lifts
How are you
him out
feeling,
of the chair,
Leader McConnell?
lifts him out of the chair to try to get him into this vehicle. And look, folks, McConnell, I think that the McConnell-Feinstein Term Limits Act needs to be passed. I think that it would unify the country. Most of the country is paying attention that a lot of these octogenarians, they're not even capable of voting. And it's on Republican Democrat sides, okay? They're allowing these octogenarians, and they don't even know which way they're voting, and it's really their staff who's voting for them. So the past 2 years, we've seen 2 senators, one from each party, being wheeled out onto the Senate floor, practically on their deathbed to vote, okay? One was figuratively on his deathbed. I wouldn't say he's on his deathbed. I definitely think that he needs, like, nursing home care. I mean, his staff is, like, lifting him out of this chair. And then the other one was literally on hers. Okay, we can't forget the Dianne Feinstein debacle. This is Dianne Feinstein. This is her being coached by her staff, her young staff, to vote aye on a bill. And she's 90 years old here, and she has no idea what's going on. And here they are coaching her to vote aye on this bill, and they just say they're telling her, just vote, just say aye, don't make this more complicated than it needs to be, Dianne. Just vote aye. And like, this is not democracy. Wheeling people out there, octogenarians. She, in this case, she was 90 years old and pretty much on her deathbed. Everybody remembers this debacle here.
Senator Feinstein.
Okay, Senator Feinstein. And then
say aye. Pardon me? Aye. Yeah. I would like to support a yes vote on this. It provides $823 billion. That's an increase of $26 billion for the Department of Defense. And it funds priorities submitted.
So
just say aye. Okay, just
Great.
aye.
Thank you. Senator Feinstein.
just say aye, just say aye. Like her whole staff is saying, just say aye, just say aye. So Kentucky went for Donald Trump by over 30 points. And if you're telling me there isn't a single Republican out there in that entire state, Kentucky, to primary Mitch McConnell, I mean, in $10, I bet he's going to announce for re-election, because that's just how it goes. They will announce for re-election, Nancy Pelosi, re-election, until they're quite literally on their deathbed, and it doesn't matter because their staff will just vote for them, essentially. There has to be somebody in Kentucky, okay, that will primary Mitch McConnell. And if there's not, then Kentucky doesn't really deserve to have a GOP. Like, this has gotten pretty much beyond ridiculous. We've got Mitch McConnell, and he's not even capable of getting himself out of a wheelchair, and he's not capable of answering questions. How are you feeling, Mitch McConnell? How are you feeling, Leader McConnell? And just complete silence. Like, I don't even think he really voted against RFK Jr. I'm going to be honest with you, or Tulsi Gabbard. I think it's the staff. All right, I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Term limits, term limits, term limits. That's what I'm all about, folks, is term limits. We're going to get to NBC. There's a few things I want to get to here in the 7 o'clock hour. NBC journalismer found that climate change is ruining your Valentine's Day. They're coming after your chocolate. Apparently, climate change is affecting the price of chocolate. J.D. Vance, he goes off on the Europeans, calls them anti-free speech tyrants, which is true. He even goes after Greta Thunberg in this speech. And J.D. Vance is, out there making very public appearances. This is not normal for a vice president. I think that he's pretty much a shoo-in for 2028, right? J.D. Vance. If not, maybe a third term for President Donald Trump. I think there's something to where he could run for a third term because he didn't serve those 2 terms consecutively. There's an argument to be made that Donald Trump can serve. I mean, FDR did it, right? He served several terms, 4 terms, I think it was. It's possible that Donald Trump runs again. That'd be pretty cool. But J.D. Vance definitely, they've got quite the bench that they're building here. The MAGA movement, they've built a bench. They've got J.D. Vance, and he's making very public appearances and speeches that vice presidents normally don't give, especially this early into their term. But he goes off on the Europeans for being anti-free speech. And in fact, there is this really incredible number that I want to provide you about Russia and the UK. So the UK dwarfs Russia when it comes to censoring people online. Here's the number. Britain's population 70 million, and then they have censored 3,300 people on the internet in just the what was it, in like a year's time or something like that. Last year, yeah, in Russia last year, only 400 people, and they have a population of 146 million. Only 400 people were arrested last year due to social media posts. Britain's population is 70 million, 3,300 were arrested. Okay, so this just goes to show you the UK, Europe, the entire continent really is anti-free speech, more so than even Russia. Okay, so smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe. We're going to be right back in just a couple of minutes. What's new, Cat? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Yes, we were talking about the Kentucky Senator, Mitch McConnell. And like I said, I don't think he really knows that he voted for RFK Jr. Or voted against RFK Jr. or Tulsi Gabbard. I don't think he really knows where he's at all. This guy needs to be primaried. There needs to be term limits. It's not fair that you elect these people to go there and to make your voices heard. They're supposed to be representatives. And then they have their staffers whispering in their ear, vote aye, vote aye, vote aye. You know, Dianne Feinstein, that whole debacle that'll go down in history is just despicable. She was practically on her deathbed and she was forced to go out there and vote for things. And that's just not right. So I want to get to a few things here in the 7 o'clock hour in NBC journalismer. I don't like to call them journalists because that's a term of respect. Journalists, these are not journalists, they're journalismers, and they use climate change, and they're using climate change to ruin your Valentine's Day. Okay, now Valentine's Day was on Friday. But they're coming after chocolate. They're trying to say that the chocolates are going up in price because of climate change. Yes, NBC News is saying that. So we're going to get to that. Plus, J.D. Vance going off on Europeans, calling them anti-free speech. Now, this is an interesting statistic. Now, grab your green crayon if you have to and write this down. 400 people last year in Russia. Now, the population of Russia is 146 million. Okay, were arrested last year for social media posts. Compare that to Britain's population. Now, this is just Britain, not the entire continent of Europe. This is just Britain. They have a 70 million population, and 3,300 people were arrested for social media posts. Okay, so Europe is far more a threat to democracy, whatever, dictatorship. Europe is so much more anti-free speech than even Russia is. Okay, so we're going to get to that because J.D. Vance is going off on the Europeans about being anti-free speech tyrants. Greta Thunberg, he even takes a stab at her. So we're going to get to that. Plus, I watched this several times over the weekend. This video is really interesting. This father captures this nightmare on camera where his son was swallowed up by a massive humpback whale. But the son was spit out. He was spit back out of the whale, and both of them didn't have injuries. The father, they were kayaking in the middle of the ocean. And this video is explosive. I've never really seen anything quite like this. But he captured this nightmare on tape, the dad of his son being swallowed by a massive whale. So we're going to get to that in just a little bit. But I want to also talk about the Valentine's Day chocolates. You might have noticed that the prices were a little higher this year. And the left, what they tried to do is they tried to tie everything, every little inconvenience to climate change. Okay. And they've mastered this very perfectly. Okay. They've mastered this technique perfectly where they tie every little minor inconvenience in your life, they tie it to climate change, and they blame you for not doing rain dances or whatever. So they've somehow connected climate change to the Valentine's Day chocolate prices. And this NBC reported climate change is making chocolate more expensive. According to the outlet, the prices of raw cocoa, chocolate's key ingredient, has surged over 200% in the past year. So the global commodities markets, cocoa figures are slightly down or down slightly in recent weeks after peaking to $12,000 per ton of cocoa. Okay, this is a key ingredient in making chocolate. That's a record, I guess. Okay, so 2 years ago they were less than $2,500. So I'm not, trying to say that this isn't happening where cocoa is not being, farmed and the yields are bad because of weather. I'm not disparaging that claim at all, but I mean, I think it's hilarious that this is like a new thing, like, oh, climate change, affecting farming yields. Yes, weather is tied to farming outcomes. Yeah, who would have thought that this was newsworthy? I guess NBC did. So NBC goes on, they say, the historic price run up just ahead of the chocolate industry's biggest day of the year has been months in the making. Disruptive weather patterns fueled by climate change have hammered West Africa, the world's where most of the world's cocoa is produced. From the raw form of the bean, right? The cocoa bean, and then they process the cocoa. It's grown there. West Africa, similar changes have been mounting for coffee farmers. So I guess the coffee beans, you can probably expect to see a price spike in those markets as well. That's expected to. You're going to feel those prices in about a year or so. Look, folks, this has been going on for years. Okay, where weather is tied to farming outcomes. Okay. Now, they also say that the cocoa bean grows best in temperatures up to 89 degrees Fahrenheit, okay, and an annual rainfall of less than 2,000 millimeters. In 2024, 71% of the cacao producing areas in West Africa experienced an average of 42 days of temperatures above that heat threshold. So higher temperatures than the perfect 89 degrees where cacao beans thrive. Okay, so it was hotter for 42 days, and then they received 40% more rainfall than expected. Like, yes, okay, weather, yep, it affects farming, it affects yields. So the left is always going to take any change and blame the masses for it. Okay, if they aren't doing their rain dances every single day. So if you and I aren't doing our rain dances every single day, they're going to blame you for this. Okay. Climate does change, and that's why they call it climate change, by the way, because then they can, say, "Oh, the climate is changing." Yes, well, the climate changes all the time. Every morning is different. Like we have, weather changing. We have like a really, really cold temperatures right now. I think actually a cold weather advisory was just issued not too long ago for normal. Like weather changes day to day here in the Midwest. Okay, so what do you want? Do you want people to do more rain dances to change the temperature in West Africa? Because I don't know how we're going to do this other than depop, which is what they want, depopulation. The answer is unclear as to what they want. Do you want rain dances? Do you want us to, not have children? Do you not want us to like live our lives? Is that the answer here? But it's unclear because, the left will take any change in the weather patterns and then they tie it to climate change and then they blame you for simply breathing. Okay, that's what this is, where this becomes a problem. You can blame the weather patterns all you want. Yeah, sure. I don't doubt that that's why the cacao is not being produced. Farming and weather patterns, yes. Who would have thunk? I guess that's farming and weather are correlated and connected. You can't win with these people. They use the term climate change because any change to the climate is considered an existential crisis, making everything a result of your existence. So they'll try to say climate change is only happening because the population, because we're not doing our part, we're not doing our rain dances or whatever they want us to do. And it's unclear if perfect weather conditions for raw cacao would have, would shut these people up if there were perfect conditions. I doubt it. They would have just found somewhere else in the world where there was, weather patterns changing, and they would have blamed you for climate change in somewhere other part of the world. But they've decided to go to West Africa here, and because they had 40 days of, a little bit higher temperatures, they're gonna blame you, your existence, and things that are out of your control. You can't control the weather patterns, okay, as a human being, no matter how many electric vehicles you own and how many bikes you own, you can't change it, okay? The climate is going to change. And, this is a fake crisis. And they're going to demand that you be taxed by your government to address this fake crisis. So that's what really bothers me about this. At the end of the day, they're going to blame you for this, and then they're going to make you feel bad, and they're going to justify taxing you into oblivion over this fake crisis. So according to NBC, you have to live with more fruits and nuts, okay, in your chocolates this Valentine's Day. Well, Valentine's Day was a couple of days ago, so you might notice more fruits and nuts, ladies, if you crack open your chocolates from your man this morning. But apparently NBC thought this was newsworthy. There's slightly less chocolate in your chocolate, and you might have had to pay an extra $1 or something because the yields were bad this year. Okay, the yields, the cacao yields were bad this year because of the weather patterns. And then they're connecting it to this fake crisis of climate change. Nonetheless, just keep track of your rain dances for right now. Okay, maybe do a rain dance this morning in the spirit of West Africa, not having perfect temperatures for your chocolate. Okay. Oh gosh, I only the left can take this and create a chocolate crisis. The fact that they had 40 days of less than perfect temperatures, and that's why the yields were off. Maybe the farmers just sucked, okay, and they didn't prepare for the weather patterns in the way that you're supposed to with farm. I have no idea how to farm cacao, but yeah, farming and weather patterns are connected. I guess that was newsworthy for NBC. All right, I want to talk a little bit about J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance has been going out and making all kinds of very profound speeches. Okay, now vice presidents, they don't typically go out and do this sort of stuff. So I think that they're usually not this visible during the first term, especially this early in the first term. So I think that they're kind of grooming him to become the president 2028. I'd love to see it. But we're going to get to J.D. Vance because he calls out the UK and specifically, Europe and specifically the UK for their lack of free speech laws. I'm going to be right back with that. You're listening to Conservative Cat. They probably would have thrown stuff at whoever was at their door pushing equitable housing. Yeah. It sounded like that the individual who was throwing things allegedly at this sitting council member, she's running for Normaltown mayor, it sounds like they probably just didn't want people at their door talking about politics, to be honest with you. Now, I don't know if they had said racial slur. She didn't describe that in the it sounds like she honestly is assuming that they were upset because she was a Black woman. They didn't say anything about her being a Black woman and, hey, this is why I'm throwing things at you. So it's a bit of a jump just because they were upset about the equitable housing and they had claimed that that's reverse racism, which in a way it is. Equitable housing, equity. The whole point of equity is to tear some people down and lift others up. So that way there's not equal opportunity, but rather equal outcomes. So everybody gets a house no matter how hard they work, no matter what their financial means are. So, if you make and if you work as a doctor, right, and you save lives every single day, you deserve the same type of house and the same housing as the McDonald worker who, flips patties. And that really doesn't have anything to do with race. So, this guy saying it's reverse racism, is it? I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's about tearing some people down and lifting some people up who aren't worthy of it. Okay. And it's lack of accountability. It's lack of individuality, right? This equitable housing. So apparently, according to Kimberly Harris, now I don't know the fellow that she had knocked on the door of, but according to this fella, he says that it's reverse racism. Which, I mean, I guess if you're tearing down a white man and then lifting up a Black man, but it doesn't necessarily mean white and Black, okay? Equitable housing. It's equitable housing means you're going to tear down people who have worked their way up to, living in a house where they can, afford that house. You're going to tear those people down and put them in a house that, is lower than what they could probably afford. And then you're going to put, people who don't work and, save lives like a doctor or something like that. And people who work as a, say McDonald's employee, flips burgers, you're going to put them in the same house that the doctor is in, which is just unfair. It's not the American way. It's communism. I don't know if it's necessarily because there are Black doctors, there are white McDonald's workers. Okay. So it's really not about race. It's about attacking excellence and attacking individuality. So it's communism. And, you know, the Democrats have made this about race. They're trying to say that, oh, well, black people are poor because they're racist individuals. Democrats are racist individuals. They assume that black people are always poor and that white people are always rich. Not true. I know plenty of people, black people, who are doctors, are, you know, in the medical field, and engineers, and, you know, people who have these white collar jobs. I know plenty. I mean, look at Barack Obama. Okay, Kimberly Harris. Okay, she is a black woman who sits on the city council. Okay, from what I understand, does pretty well. Okay, so to suggest that black people are poor and white people are not is a racist notion. I think to its very core, I think that most Americans in their day-to-day interact with people of all races, colors, creeds, sexes, and it's not exclusive. Excellence is not exclusive to white men. That is just a false notion. My boss is a woman. Okay, I've worked for white men. I've worked for black men. I've worked for white women. I've worked for black women. Okay, there's been a manager at McDonald's. She, you know, had many franchises and managed many McDonald's in the area. She was a black woman. Okay, and she was very successful. Made more money than me, a white woman. Okay, plenty more money than me now, probably. Okay, so she probably makes way more money than I do now. Okay, so this notion that black people don't make enough or as much money as white people, or can't make as much money as white people, that's just false. And, you know, this person probably was triggered by her coming up to the door. My suggestion to this person: hey, put up a no solicitation, soliciting no trespassing sign, and then people will stay off your property. Okay, so that's my suggestion to this person. I've got one. You know, I do my own work. I don't allow people come to my door. I've got a sign that says no trespassing. Don't come up to my door and knock. I'm not about the door knocking. Okay, so I'll educate myself. I don't need you to come up to my door and give me your elevator pitch with your campaign literature. I just don't need it in my life. So that's my suggestion to the guy. If this happened, if she believed that this was, one, racially motivated, two, if they were throwing things, then she has a case and she should file a report with the police. Taking to social media and claiming that Normal is a racist community, not doing well for her campaign. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. I so do appreciate you tuning in. I do want to get to this morning. JD Vance, you know, the media, they've spent a lot of time, you know, going after Elon Musk. Now, I think that they've pretty much given up going after Donald Trump. They don't really attack him too much anymore. They've just, you know, made Elon Musk their new boogeyman. It's only a matter of time before the media realizes that JD Vance is a threat to them. JD Vance is a threat to the Democrats. JD Vance is a threat to the globalists. Here's Exhibit A, B, C, D, E. He's just got so many examples of this. Here's an example of him going after Europeans and telling a room full of Europeans that they are failing their people by prohibiting their speech. And he gave a speech about how, you know, they pretty much suck at life, the Europeans, because they are limiting free speech, Europeans, more so than even Russia. Okay, so I gave you the statistics. Russia, 146 million people, only 400 people were arrested due to post on social media. 70 million people in the UK, the population, and then they arrested 3,300 people for what they posted on social media. So I want to share this. This is, and one thing about JD Vance is that he is going out on essentially like a tour. I mean, and this is not common for vice presidents, especially this early in the term, for him to be going out and being very visible. Take a listen to JD Vance here.
But while the Trump administration is very concerned with European security and believes that we can come to a reasonable settlement between Russia and Ukraine, and we also believe that it's important in the coming years for Europe to step up in a big way to provide for its own defense, The threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America. But while the Trump administration
And that is free speech. So Vance, he focused on the UK's lack of free speech laws, where you can get arrested for social media posts. You can even get arrested for, praying outside of these abortion factories, praying silently, by the way. Yes, this happened to a woman, or I think it was a man, actually. He was praying outside of an abortion clinic, but he wasn't even opening his mouth. And he was just, there folding his hands, bowing his head. And he was praying silently in his head. And they had arrested him for it. So this is another clip from this speech. I think he was at some sort of conference, the security conference. He went to a security conference and he just roasted, essentially the entire continent of Europe. Take a listen to this. Here we go.
Look at Europe today, it's sometimes not so clear what happened to some of the Cold War's winners. I look to Brussels, where EU commissars warn citizens that they intend to shut down social media during times of civil unrest the moment they spot what they've judged to be, quote, hateful content. Or to this very country, where police have carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet, a day of action. I look to Sweden, where 2 weeks ago the government convicted a Christian activist for participating in Koran burnings that resulted in his friend's murder. And as the judge in his case chillingly noted, Sweden's laws to supposedly protect free expression do not, in fact, grant, and I'm quoting, a free pass to do or say anything without risking offending the group that holds that belief. And perhaps most concerningly, I look to our very dear friends, the United Kingdom, where the backslide away from conscience rights has placed the basic liberties of religious Britons in particular in the crosshairs. A little over 2 years ago, the British government charged Adam Smith Connor, a 51-year-old physiotherapist and an Army veteran, with the heinous crime of standing 50 meters from an abortion clinic and silently praying for 3 minutes.
Wow. Okay. So that's JD Vance, a room full of Europeans, and he's just calling them out for their anti-free speech laws. So I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. We'll go ahead and take a listen to this, more of this speech. He's, in a room full of Europeans, by the way, ripping on their laws and on their free speech laws. Take a listen.
Not obstructing anyone, not interacting with anyone, just silently praying on his own. And after British law enforcement spotted him and demanded to know what he was praying for, Adam replied simply, it was on behalf of the unborn son he and his former girlfriend had aborted years before. Now, the officers were not moved. Adam was found guilty of breaking the government's new buffer zones law, which criminalizes silent prayer and other actions that could influence a person's decision within 200 meters of an abortion facility. He was sentenced to pay thousands of pounds in legal costs to the prosecution. Now, I wish I could say that this was a fluke, a one-off crazy example of a badly written law being enacted against a single person. But no, this last October, just a few months ago, the Scottish government began distributing letters to citizens whose houses lay within so-called safe access zones, warning them that even private prayer within their own homes may amount to breaking the law. Naturally, the government urged readers to report any fellow citizens suspected guilty of thought crime. In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat.
Wow. There's JD Vance. Absolutely incredible. So he pointed out the hypocrisy in the UK looking to censor free speech in political elections, by the way. So the UK, notably, they called it election interference because Elon Musk has, during the election, the 2024 election, came out and endorsed and funneled money into Trump's campaign. Okay, so If it's if the wrong person expresses an opinion about an election, especially if that person is a billionaire, then it's election interference. But not the billionaires, Alex Soros, Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, Reid Hoffman. Only Elon Musk, okay, because he expressed his opinion and he's not the right type of billionaire. That's why it's election interference, and they said that it's an election interference. The UK did. Elon, of course, funneling money into Trump's and endorsing Trump during the 2024 campaign. The litany of other, WEF, the World Economic Forum billionaires are just fine. But it's Elon Musk who's the problem, okay? And it's election interference if he expresses an opinion about the election. Now, JD Vance, he said, look, Europe needs to chill out. He says, quote, speaking up and expressing opinions is election interference, even when people who express those views are outside the country, and even when those people are very influential. If American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, so Greta Thunberg has always scolded America for our, climate change practices or whatever, or energy practices. She's always scolded us. If we can deal with that, I think that they can deal with Elon Musk having an opinion about the election, right? I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. So here's JD Vance. He even took a stab at Greta Thunberg. Now the left, they'll scream at the sky about Elon Musk. They'll say that it's election interference what he did, giving money to Donald Trump, endorsing Donald Trump, giving money to his campaign. But they won't scream at the sky about Alex Soros, Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, Reid Hoffman, and other, the litany of other World Economic Forum billionaires who express their opinions and funnel money into certain campaigns. No. They don't scream at the sky over that or claim election interference over that. It's just Elon Musk, because Elon Musk is expressing an opinion. So Vance, he actually said this.
Agree with a lot of these concerns, but you don't have to agree with me. I just think that people care about their homes, they care about their dreams, they care about their safety and their capacity to provide for themselves and their children. And they're smart. I think this is one of the most important things I've learned in my brief time in politics. Contrary to what you might hear a couple mountains over in Davos, the citizens of all of our nations don't generally think of themselves as educated animals or as interchangeable cogs of a global economy. And it's hardly surprising that they don't want to be shuffled about or relentlessly ignored by their leaders. And it is the business of democracy to adjudicate these big questions at the ballot box. I believe that dismissing people, dismissing their concerns, or worse yet, shutting down media, shutting down elections, or shutting people out of the political process protects nothing. In fact, it is the most surefire way to destroy democracy. And speaking up and expressing opinions isn't election interference. Even when people express views outside your own country, and even when those people are very influential. And trust me, I say this with all humor, if American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk. But what German democracy?
Like I said, vice presidents, they're not very visible during this early in the term, especially. And I think that, he's being groomed by going to all of these conferences, having these speeches. I think that he's being groomed for 2028. I don't think that that's a crazy thing to suggest. And I'm all for it. I think that he's being prepared to lead the country in 2028. And that's exciting because he's got the charisma, he's got the youth, he's got the adorable family, and he's building a portfolio here and a presence as a world leader. And he's doing an amazing job so far. You guys have a blessed rest of your day. Bye-bye. I love you. We'll do it all over again tomorrow morning. There is I think it was a cold weather advisory. Stay warm. It's freezing out there. Bye-bye. Love you. See you tomorrow.